Welcome to The Finance Geeks, a podcast about real financial planning. Join us as we get into the nitty-gritty, discussing everything from pensions to portfolios. If you're into numbers, strategies, and running a successful practice, this is your ultimate geeky hangout.
Hello and welcome to Season 2, Episode 19 of the Finance Geeks podcast. Thanks for joining us. My name is Warren Shute and I'm joined by
Paul Cleworth.
And today we're talking about what you should expect when you first meet a financial planner. But before we dive into that, Paul, what have you been up to since we last spoke?
I have been to Scotland recently to see my folks up in Aviemore. I decided to just go up on my own because it was too difficult to arrange a time for my wife and kids to come as well, and they're at school. So I flew up on a Thursday morning, had the rest of Thursday with them, and then I went back Friday evening. And for that period of time, it's because I don't see them as often as I should, and they're getting on now, so they can't get down to mine as often. But I ended up doing about 6 hours of gardening for them.
What?
Yes, because the garden was a mess. I said, "Oh, do you want me to help out?" So we took them out to dinner. We went out for breakfast. It was really nice to see them. So I'm thankful for that. I've been to the dentist recently. That's fun. Prepping for a new crown. What else have I been doing? I've been getting organised for my trip to Japan. My lovely wife does most of it, and I just sort of say yes or no. And we talk about things we're going to do with the kids. So the big one was trying to get tickets to Universal Studios because it's outrageously expensive. But we're going to a baseball game, and we're going on the Shinkansen from Tokyo to where's the other one? Osaka. So we're staying in Tokyo for a week, Osaka for a week. But we're getting a 2-week rail pass so we can go to lots of places, you see. So that's been doing that. I've been preparing for a second advisor to start at the end of July, our third week of July. So there's been effort there. And we've been changing the names of a lot of our documents. And I think, trying not to overcomplicate this, but we used to just call it a cash flow, which was a budget planner. And then we used to present a report to the client, and so forth. Anyway, we've changed the names of these now to the view document, which is the values, income, expenditure, wealth. It's just an acronym. The view plan, which is the financial plan we present, and the life view, which is the document, the presentation I go through to them, explaining all about, or trying to stimulate them and trying to inspire them to do things with their life. Just a couple of other things. What else have we been doing? We've got 2 workplace experiences next week and the week after, 2 young 16-year-olds. So I'm doing my bit for some of the children of parents I work with to have their kids come in for a bit of work experience. So still needs a bit of prep. You can't just say make the tea and coffee, as they're going to sit in on some client meetings.
You got a program already?
We've got things for them to do. We've got a list of things for them to do and a bit of a program. Yeah, we've had kids in previous years, and they've been. One lad in particular last year was incredibly impressive. So quick on the computer, just didn't even need to show him much. He was just. I was thinking, I'll give you a job tomorrow. He's really good. 16 years old.
I push on about making financial planning a profession. I think any financial planners listening, really encourage you to take a work placement child on or something. It's just giving back to the community and giving back as a profession as a whole. So, we've done it for years. I really enjoy it.
Yeah. And then lastly, been thinking about how to develop our website. So we have got things in the works. One in particular is a library. It's a section of our website. We're going to have the top 50 recommended books, and it's going to be a login feature for clients. So that's exciting. And then getting some bit more content, a bit more video content. What about you, Warren?
Yeah, we're also recruiting. I literally just come out of an interview before doing this podcast today.
How did it go?
Not something I enjoy. It went really well. Yeah, really, really nice guy. Really, really nice guy. Really enjoyed meeting with him and stuff like that. We have some assessments. We have a very strict recruitment process that we follow. We've got some assessments to do. And then I kind of leave the final decision up to Helen, our practice manager, and Nikki, my wife.
Do you get them to produce a plan?
No. We don't get them to produce a plan. We get them to do some accuracy tests. We get them to write us an email, respond to a letter, that kind of thing. So we do a DISC profile, we do a personality profiling on them. You ever read the book Surrounded by Idiots?
Yeah, I have.
Yeah, great book. Yeah.
Used what? Discuss that one to do the profile.
Yeah. We really rate DISC. If any people are listening, get your own DISC profile done. It's fantastic. It's very, very interesting. So we do that, and we rely on it quite a lot because we've had so much good evidence back to say it's accurate.
Wow.
So yeah. So this guy was a blue green, which is a really, really good fit for a paraplanner type role. So yeah, he came back ideal. So which is great. So that's good. Still don't enjoy doing it, but we have a nice process that we follow. And stuff like we had compliance in today, and we just got we don't get many files reviewed, but they do like us to have files reviewed. We got a glowing 10 out of 10 score, and she said no one gets 10 out of 10 scores. How do you do this? And the reviewer's like really difficult. And I got to say, it's not because I'm great. It's because we have the systems and processes in place. And I give credit to my team. Poppy, Matt, and Christian. They all do it in Paraffin. They'll do a great job putting the file together. I just deliver the advice. It's a process that we follow. So, and talking about our processes, we updated our financial plan recently. Bit like you, we give a financial plan document to our client at the end of every planning meeting, and we just refreshed it. It was the same one we've used for 10 years. We put some sketches in, some diagrams, reworded it a little bit, made it look a little bit prettier, that kind of thing. But yeah, it's all good stuff. All good stuff. Busy as everyone is, enjoying work, and just trying to keep it fresh. Keep it on the cutting edge of the curve, really.
Yeah, I had a referral from a client, a couple recently, but one in particular I spoke to the other day. They're living in Aberystwyth, so they're not exactly next door to us. But phone call went really well. Had a nice chat with them, and hopefully they'll come in to see me in a couple of weeks, even though it's a 5-hour drive or something. I said, no,
Yeah.
you have to come in and see us. That's how it works. So yeah, a good
Oh, okay.
referral. Nice
Yeah.
people.
Yeah. Good. Hey, should we move on to the main focal point of today?
Yes, let's do that.
Yeah. What you should expect when you first meet a financial planner. So why don't we kind of go back to the very beginning, the first contact to the firm, and then kind of work our way through to the end of the first meeting, which all listeners and people have different names for this kind of thing. And then maybe at a future episode, we can cover the next, what happens afterwards, really. So, talk me through it. What sort of happens? So you have these individuals you just mentioned for Aberystwyth. They call in, I assume. They make a phone call to you initially. And
So
then what sort of
I'll
happens?
tell you what happens. I'll tell you what happens exactly. Almost all my business comes through referral. Not all of it, but one way or another, I'll get an email from the client. Or quite often, they might phone in or whatever, but quite often, there's an email discussion between us, and they want to have an initial discussion and an initial chat. So what happens is I might email them back and ping them and I'll have Thomas, my administrator, or Catherine, just send them a couple of links and a time in the diary to speak to myself for say 20 minutes or 30 minutes. So they'll arrange the date for me to speak to the client. And when we talk about what you should expect, I think the client should expect me to call them on time. So I don't have them call in myself. I don't meet them on Zoom or Teams. Sometimes I do for the first meeting, but more often than not, it's a phone call for 20 minutes to 30 minutes. And it's just literally to sort of establish if there's a good fit between myself and them, get to know them a little bit, what they're like, what they're looking for. And for me, it's to establish whether we should have a first meeting.
I think it's a real key takeaway there for listeners. If you're a planner listening, that I also almost insist on a phone call for the first time I have contact with a client or potential client. And for me, it's so I can really concentrate on what it is they're saying and what their outcomes are. And I'm not distracted anyway about, their environment they're in, what they look like or anything else.
Yeah.
And it
Yeah.
might be an old school thing, make an initial phone call, that kind of thing. But yeah, very, very similar sort of setup. Inquiry comes in from us. Matt normally takes the inquiries in. He'll book a time in the diary. As you know, we're super structured,
Yeah.
2 or 4 o'clock in the afternoon. And then I'll just give the individual a call at that time, like you said, on time. Or
Yeah.
arguably, I have an expression in our office: on time is late, 5 minutes early is on time. So normally a couple of minutes just before the time is due. And just go through and really, I have sort of a preamble that I like to sort of go through with the client, but I start off with, how can I help? What is it you're after?
Yeah,
What are you
that's a
looking for?
good line. It's a good question. Tell me what you're looking to achieve. Tell me how I might be able to help. Um, might set the scene initially with the discussion and sort of say, "Oh, hi, is that Mr. or Mrs. Johnson or whoever it is? Paul from Tandem Financial. We agreed to speak. I believe you know Robert and Jenny. They're lovely clients of ours. So the purpose of the call is to establish if there's a good fit between us. It's usually 20 or 30 minutes. I'll explain the time. Tell me a bit about yourself, what you're looking to achieve. And for me, it's not about getting them to tell me all about their assets completely. You want to know a little bit, but I'm really looking for, do they want an advisor? Do they actually want to work with an advisor? Some people, they just want the advice, the technical facts, maybe and you can tell, in all honesty, after 20 or 30 minutes, probably quicker than that, do you want to even meet with this person? Are they going to be fun? Do you want them on your bus? I quite like that expression. If you're the driver, is there enough of a fit between them in terms of what they have, what they're looking to achieve, and what you offer? If you're a financial planner and you produce written financial plans, for me, it's got to be a client with policies to review. It's got to be clients with problems to solve. They are perhaps they're transitioning to retirement. Perhaps they suddenly feel that they're not very organized with their finances. They've got pensions everywhere, or they've just had a child, or they've just moved house. Or there's something that's happened, a life event that's required them to say, "Oh, I need to get some advice." And if we can
Yeah.
establish what that is, that's great. I'm loath to tell them costs and fees and all of that on the phone. I say we'll cover all of that in the meeting. So that's one thing I don't tend to cover off in the meeting. If they push it a little bit, I will probably go on to it. But I try and wait to I say, look, there's no initial cost. So come in and see us, but I will expect you to complete this fact find, bring in all the documents on our first meeting checklist, and come super organized to the meeting, and it'll be a good investment in my time and your time.
It's interesting. So you start off there and you said about the welcome stuff. Then you asked, how you got introduced or you reconfirmed it. I actually don't ask that until right at the end. And the rationale, the reason I don't, and I'm picking up differences so that the listeners can think, okay, I like that way or I like that way. And like we said before, we both run incredibly successful practices. So there's more than one way to skin a cat. But I ask at the end because I don't want to be tainted on, oh, they're really good clients. So these are going to be really good clients. Or actually, their assets are smaller than our average. I wonder if their asset, so that's the why I don't. So I literally just say, hey, how you doing? It's Warren. Is it convenient to speak? How may I help? What is he looking for? And then they go off. And I do say, I do basically run through their asset. Tell me what your asset profile looks like, your income, expenditure, and liabilities. And then I normally sort of conclude that by saying something along the lines, hey, would it help if I explain how we work here? Lexington is a financial planning firm. This is our initial welcome call. We've got a welcome call. If you think it would be good value, we can arrange what we refer to as a discovery meeting. Takes about an hour. Now, I'm very happy to do those on Teams. They work really well for me on Teams. So most of my discovery meetings are on Teams. At the end of that meeting, if you think we're a right fit, we'll then arrange our investment presentation and planning meeting, and I explain the journey, the process from. Would you like to put a date in the diary? So that tends to be sort of my sort of preamble. Find out what their outcomes are, what they're looking to achieve. Can I add? What I'm looking for is, can I add value to them now and over the years ahead? Really, that's what I'm looking for. We don't do one-stop shops and stuff. So
Oh, definitely. It's not about transactional work. I explain that it's building a relationship with the client. It's weird because there'll be advisors out there that perhaps won't elaborate on the phone call as to what the client's position is, and I absolutely do. I say, tell me a bit about your position.
yeah,
What do you do for a living? What's your income position? What do you earn? Are you employed? Are you not? I'll ask them about their home, the value, whether they've got a mortgage. What's the value of their investable assets, their pensions, their ISAs, their cash position. Because I'm looking for similar clients, those that have, you know, uh, positions where perhaps they've got £500,000, £1 million of investable assets. You shouldn't feel bad about asking those figures, because if you want to work with clients like that, you don't want to be shocked if the client comes into the meeting and they happen to have 50,000 and that's all they want to do. They want to set up an ISA and a pension. That's it. If you want that work,
yeah,
great. But actually,
yeah.
I like to bring clarity to a client that's got considerable assets. They've got policies everywhere, and I'm looking to bring organization and clarity to the client.
You're absolutely right. I think they've got to have the capacity to pay your fee. And you're not going to know that unless you ask the question. So you have to, I believe, ask about their assets, liabilities. So many financial planners are almost getting evangelical about saying, "Oh, don't talk products. It's all about planning." Yeah, I'm a real, true, through and through financial planner. But financial planning includes products. Sometimes the product solves the solution. So I need to know what their situation is, and I want to ask them, "Hey, what's this? What's that?" We don't raise fees. So we won't explain our costs on the phone unless we're asked.
Yeah.
If we're asked, we do explicitly just cover it off. And the reason, probably similar to you, the reason we don't explain fees is because we want them to experience what we do and then make a judgment of whether it's good value for money. What a lady financial planner posted a post on LinkedIn a little while ago about, we should, I forget, I'm going to get this wrong, I'm sure, and I apologize to the lady who it is. We think financial planners should always disclose their fees on their website. And everyone's like, yeah. And I was like, do you know what? I disagree, because clients don't know what financial planning is. And when they see your fees, they're then going to compare you to every other financial advisor out there who does transactional stuff and say, oh my God, you're going to charge me that just to see me? Be completely open and honest, give value, explain what you're going to charge before you charge it, and then let the client decide whether it's good value for money.
I like that. I did a PFS Power presentation on this very thing about building the value over the course of the meeting, and at the end of the meeting, you then say what it costs. So you're putting it into perspective. By the way, on prior to an initial phone call, when I said one of my team would book the client in for a diary request, they'll send them an Outlook diary request. I like to send them my Linktree web link. So it's you've probably seen these ones, but you can just put all of your various other websites on there. So it's one website, one link, and the client can look at whatever they want. My website, the Planning Your Events website, my LinkedIn profile, TFG podcast. I'll also often now include a PDF, just one, that says key benefits of working with an IFA. I want the client to understand a bit about what we do and how we can add value in a one-page PDF. Obviously, we've got the date confirmed in the meeting and the timescales and where it is. So we'll have a link to the map. Prior to just having a phone call, you don't want to give them too much, to look at. You don't want to say, here's my brochure, here's my investment brochure, here's my company brochure. But when we follow up the discussion I've had with the client, and what's great about having it on the phone is because we use Evonics, which is a phone system that uses a VoIP, it records all the calls. I can actually save that MP3, drag it into Saturn AI. It'll transcribe the meeting, and then we'll take bits out of that, which I can get my team to do, and saying, this is what we discussed. And I'm reiterating on the phone the client's position, not with 50 pages, but quite summarizing it. This is your position. It shows that I've been listening.
You do that after the initial phone call?
Yeah, after the initial phone call. Send it to the client. The follow-up email to the phone call will give the summary of the position, what they're looking to achieve. And at that point, I'll probably give them a copy of my company brochure. I probably will at this stage, actually, if we've decided to have a meeting, we'll include the fact find as an attachment. And then the second PDF is the first meeting checklist. And it's one page PDF. It says, these are all the things to bring into your meeting. And we explain the importance of completing the fact find as thoroughly as possible. Preferably complete it, email it to me ahead of the meeting, day or two. And then I've got that. So we're not spending the time in the meeting when we do have it going through all the facts. We've got them. If any advisor out there wants to know our process, I can send them a dummy example of the initial meeting, the links, the things that we send. I'm happy to do that. And we'll put in the show notes the disc thing that you mentioned before about profiles.
Yeah. Let me just conclude. So very similar to you, I guess, at the end of the meeting, I send them an email, but it's very, very more summarized than that. I then have, it's very much like, great speech, everything else. We have a RAG system, either the red, amber, green, sorry. If they go ahead, we talk about monkeys in our office as well a lot. Ken Blanchard, 10-minute manager.
Oh my goodness. Carry on.
So, I'll explain it because it'd be interesting for people to understand the concept behind it. So if they go ahead, okay, yes. I'll send the email. We have a standard template, and I have a link to our brochure, etc. And I'd say, book the meeting in. Matt will send you the meeting diary confirmation, this, that, and the other. And then Matt takes the monkey. That's referred to the monkey. Matt, that ownership of that project task now is Matt's got it. Is the monkey is the task, not the client. It's the actual project task.
Thank goodness.
Yeah. If it's they'd like to consider it, and you often get a consideration if it's a husband and wife and only one of them arrived for the call, or my wife couldn't make it, do you mind if I just run it past before I go ahead? Not a problem. The planner keeps the monkey. So I'll hold on to that monkey. That'll go in my project task. I'll follow up with that individual after that. If it's a red, for whatever reason, they don't want to join us for whatever reason, we don't think they're the right fit, we'll often signpost them. So I'll send them out to the CSI Wayfinder. If I think their needs are very simple, I'll send them to my book. Or I've got an educational website I can send them to. So I'll try and point them in the direction and try and get good help. I very, very rarely just leave them standing. I normally sort of send them to Tandem. There's a great firm who send them over there and they can normally get help.
I'll
So,
take on your rejects. Thanks very much.
so very, very similar. I don't think I probably go into so much detail in the email for me because it's literally a 5-minute job. We don't record we have a facility, but we don't record phone calls. But it's very much, red, amber, green.
Yeah. As well as saying to them the importance of completing the fact find, the Excel document as fully as possible. We also put in our email and reiterate that there's no cost or obligation for the face to face meeting. And I made the decision, quite a few years ago now, to not take on any new clients via Teams or Zoom or remotely. It just doesn't matter how much you've got or what the position is. We just don't do it. They must come in for a meeting. They come in for a first meeting and they'll bring the fact finding documents and stuff, and we'll see how we get on. But then there's no commitment. There's not as if the client, I'm going to handcuff them and say, you must proceed with me as a client. And similarly, if they want to work with me, but I don't, I'll just say, I hope you got some value out of the meeting, but we've established in this meeting there's not a great fit.
Is that an uncomfortable moment?
It is. It's happened before, but it's just there's no point just taking on the client because you're not prepared to say no, even if you've met them face to face.
Do they say, if you had anyone say, can I have another coffee before I go? Your coffee's really good. Can I have another coffee?
Not that. Hey, I want to go back to the title of this podcast because it's what you should expect when you first meet with a financial planner. So before we go into more structured as to specifically what happens in the first meeting, I wanted to cover off these points that I think the client should expect the advisor, if in a first meeting, to be hospitable, to be amicable, to find this pleasant environment that's hopefully clean and smells nice, where it's relaxed and it allows the client to sort of open up. I think the client should expect clarity and transparency in the meeting. I think you've got to explain what you do, how you do it, what the costs and fees are. That's got to be in there. I also think that the client should expect that you, as the advisor, would ask them decent questions and you'll listen to them, because lots of people get talked at. They don't actually get their point across at all. And then the last 2 points are, I think the client should expect the person they're speaking to be professionally presented and secondly to be organized.
Thanks for talking all those things at me.
Yes, Warren. This isn't a demo of you being a client and me being the advisor, but thank you.
Yeah, I think the only other thing I've probably not added that we haven't covered is the time frame. So from the client contacting our office, we pretty much always go back to them within 24 hours, and then book an appointment at the first available point. But that first available point typically is at least 1 week from the call. So the client will call in, we'll go back to them. We won't book them in that afternoon or the next day. And the rationale behind it is we're setting the scene. It's intentional. Even if I've got free space, we're setting the scene saying, hey, look, you're really important to us. We've called you back straight away, but it's got to be, things happen in order. There's a process. We can't just drop everything for you. And sometimes, I want to speak to him this week. Well, I'm sorry, Mr. Stu's not available, but we can speak to you this week. So our first meeting, what do you call your first meeting? Do you call it first meeting or welcome meeting or?
It says welcome on our storyboards, but I think that I would refer to it verbally as the discovery meeting, but I would still probably call it the first meeting with the client because that's what it is. I know some people call it different things, but it is a chance to obviously explain what it is that you do clearly and to understand the client's needs. It's the discovery meetings have become quite popular, hasn't it? That term, and I don't know about you. It's first meeting, and the second meeting. Just to put clarity to this, is almost
Second
always
meeting.
just a presentation. Yes, the second meeting. It's the presentation meeting.
But for long-standing clients, they have like the 77th meeting and stuff like that.
That's what we put in the diary. The 77th meeting. Yeah. And then when it gets past 70, 78, there's no more. Not a chance. So you and I were talking earlier on about the client agreement, and the client agreement, as you know, is our sort of terms of business type document. But it's interesting to me. I didn't realise that there's lots of different derivations of this. It used to be the terms of business, and then the IDD, anyway. The question I was going to ask you directly is to the client agreement. and any other documents, when do you get them to sign them? When do you present them to the client?
Okay, so the FCA expect us to have the client agreement signed before issued before any regulated advice is presented. So we send it out after the initial welcome call. So after the initial welcome call, if the client wants to go ahead, they get the client brochure, the client agreement, and our about us and how we work together. So that's the brochure, and the client profile, our fact find. So they get those 3 documents. They get those, and we expect them signed. We like them signed and returned to us prior to the discovery meeting. We don't insist on it because our duty has been met by issuing it.
Wow. I remember starting out at Canada Life 25 years ago, and they used to say, oh, you need to get the client to sign the terms of business, and go through it before you even chat about anything. You're there having a face-to-face meeting, and it's just so boring to go through it straight away. So contrary to what you just said, I used to send the client agreement as a PDF to the clients, and I thought, actually, there's 2 problems with that. One, ours is quite long. It's about, I don't know, 25 pages long. It's a fairly sizable print, and
Isn't it? It's font size 8 or something? Or was it 6? I remember looking at it once. I got the magnifying glass, double-sided.
I remember putting together my client agreement, and we did it as a booklet, and we had it printed initially. Although it's not 29, it's 29 sections or something. It's about 50 pages, and you think, God, that's way too long for a client to. I can get it up for there. I can show it, but that's way too long.
No, we
a
haven't got
document.
time. It'll crash your machine.
Listen, that's way too long a document for the clients to expect them to read and to sign. So I thought, this is no good. And we just said earlier about building the value, having the meeting, and then explaining what the fees are. Well, if all your fees are like ours are included with the examples in the client agreement, why would I send that out prior to the meeting? Listen, so what I do is we'll have the first meeting, and at the end of that meeting, usually towards the end, and I've done the various presentations, which we'll go into in a second, I'll then put the client agreement on the screen. I will paraphrase, go through it with them. I'll ask them if they understand it. Yeah. And at that point, I will.
You wake them up.
No, at that point, yeah, I can paraphrase it pretty quickly. At that point, I'll get them to sign the 4-page services and payment agreement, the SAPA, and the DPN, the data privacy notice. And so but it does include lots of sections that I want the client to go through, and there's bits that you're required to put in there. But you can't get ahead of a meeting where you've never even met them to get a client to sign a document like that. Even though you can use expressions like, look, you're not signing your life away, you're not committing to proceeding with all of this. You're just saying that you understand how we're regulated, how we operate, what our costs and fees are, and how we work as a business. That's what you're signing.
No, I say 9 out of 10 clients sign it. It's all DocuSign now. 9 out of 10 clients sign it, and those that don't will have to sign it before we do any work.
Hey, let's talk about the sort of structure of the first meeting, sort of setting the scene so that your client comes in to see you in your first meeting, discovery meeting, whatever. Talk to me about first impressions and what they should expect when they come in.
I think I'm less focused on that as you are. So a lot of the things you were saying about, being courteous, being smartly dressed, I kind of just being as a given being in an office. I think anyone who goes, you're right, they probably should expect that, but it's a kind of a given thing. Client comes into the office, they get greeted into the reception area. I'm not in there. Matt will make them a coffee and things. I'm sat in my office. And then I'll go through and fetch them. I'll bring them into my meeting. I'll sit them down. We have a sofa. They sit on a sofa, a small coffee down in front of them, have a coffee. I say, niceties of how's your journey and stuff. Then I have a phrase. I just say, Lexington is a financial planning firm linked to lifestyle. We want our clients to live life by design and not default. We believe if you miss enough moments in life, you miss life itself. Precious time is running out for us all.
You say that verbatim to every client?
Every client. With that, do you mind if I ask you a few questions? It's going to take about an hour. No, not at all, Warren. Go ahead. Tell me, what's really important to you about money? I shut up. And then we go through, and I have a mind map. I'm just sat there, I have a mind map, and I go through and I mind map their values. So they'll typically say freedom or something. And I think I want to drill into this just very briefly. A lot of planners will do value-based selling, but the way they've been taught it, I believe, is not correct. So they'll say security. Do you really mean, do you have that now? What does security mean? Let's get their value and really understand it so we can do something about it. We're not asking their values to say we're a value-based financial planner for our ego. We're asking them their value so that we can do something with it. Well, security means I have £100,000 in the bank. Where does that come from? Drill down, get down deeper with the client. I grade my discovery meetings on success if I can bring a tear to the client's eye. And that really just means that you touch their emotions.
I'm going to switch off now. I'm unplugging my microphone.
It's just really getting to that level of the client, because I found over my time, the more successful and the higher in society the individuals held, okay, if they're someone famous, for example, the less someone challenges them.
I can understand that. I can believe that. But you go back a second. You've done your key phrase to the clients there, which is all well and good. Live life by design, not default. All of that. Key moments, yada yada. So very prophetic. And then you just sort of say straight into, what does money mean to you? You don't say to the client, how can I help you, or tell me why you're here.
I'd done that on the initial call. I don't repeat myself. First question I asked on this call is, how can I help you? How can I help? They've told me how I can help.
Right.
I don't need to now ask them again. I've written that down. I know what it is. I haven't written it back to them immediately. I don't reiterate it to them. They've told me. I've made a note of it. So now I want to know, okay, so I know how I can help. You told me you want to sort your pensions out. Now tell me what's important about money to you.
Do you go straight into the heavy stuff there, straight into the psychological questions about money, straight into that?
Then get deeper. And then get deeper. It's just fantastic. And I love discovery meetings. So I have an associate planner in my office. I've had an associate planner now for a couple of years who helps me out with all my planning meeting stuff. And they do the investment presentations, but I'm the only one that I will do a discovery meeting. Because it's psychology, it's coaching, it's good stuff.
It is for you, but not all financial planners will do this. And this is what we're saying, that there are different methods of having a first meeting. I wanted to explain briefly what we do in this.
You want me to quickly run through the rest of the meeting very briefly, so you see?
Go on, then
I
you
won't
run through
go
the rest of your
into
meeting. No, go on, then carry on. You're on a roll.
So that their values, I want to know what their values are about their financial planner as well. So tell me what's important to you about your financial planner. So I want them to tell me how I should act.
Okay.
So if I know what they expect of me, I know whether I can deliver that or not. I want to know their outcomes. I talk to them. I use the Dan Sullivan reciprocation or relationship question, and I want to know about their outcomes and such like. I want to know about their relationships, the relationships with money, the relationships with other members of the family, who they support financially. I want to know about their health conditions, what they are, the relationship with themselves, mental health, physical health, that kind of thing. And then I talk about their alley. I talk about their assets, liabilities, income, expenditure, trust, wills, that sort of stuff. What about other advisors? So if they work with any other professionals, investment managers, insurance brokers, solicitors, accountants, that kind of thing. Then I explain, can I explain how we work here? And I reiterate the journey, our work process, how we work with our clients, the journey, and then how we get paid. And I explain to them how we get paid in our industry. Do you have any questions about how we work or how we get paid? And then I finish it on a high, and I just finish, what do you do when you're not working, or what do you enjoy doing in your pastime? And then I close just with, is there anything else you need to know from me in order to know that Lexington is the right firm to advise you over the years ahead? I'd probably say every 9 out of 10 clients who I want to engage will engage. And we have a very, very good relationship at the end of it. We feel connected. Yeah, it's good. It's taken years to polish.
All your clients must be half American. It must be. The cheese there, the cheese-tastic. Tremendous. Hey, whatever works for you, Warren. It's obviously working. Yeah. You can do all that in 60 minutes. Well, I'm learning. I'm learning. I'm going to try and get down my first meeting, my discovery meeting, to 10 minutes.
Well, that would just be your client agreement, reading your client agreement. So
Tremendous. Wowzers. Contrary to the way that you do it a bit differently.
that's
When
cool.
the client comes in, they're greeted by the team. Almost always, it's not usually myself. I'm upstairs, and so the team meet them. I can see them from my office where I am, that the client has come in, and they'll say their name straight away. They'll introduce themselves. They'll ask them to come through to the boardroom, and they walk past the toilet in the kitchen into the boardroom. They'll sit them down, and on the screen, on the big screen, it'll have the client's name and welcome and so forth. So the big 55-inch monitor in there. They sit down. They tell them where to sit so they can see the screen. And they say, Paul will be in just a minute. Would you like a tea or a coffee? And they put tea, coffee, biscuits, water, all up on the table, and just let them relax. I'll then, 2 or 3 minutes later, maybe it's 5 minutes later even, walk down, go and introduce myself to them, and we'll just initially, obviously, I'll shake the hands and say, how did you get on finding us, and how's your day, and so forth. Big smile, um, and just say it's great to meet you, because obviously we've chatted on the phone, so it's lovely to meet you in person. I then click onto the next slide where there's an agenda, and it will show on there the points to the meeting. And I'll sort of establish the timescales and say usually a first meeting is 90 minutes. That sort of time could be longer. Um, if they desperately want to get away quicker, I will try and quicken it up a bit. But it's usually as ask them, is that okay? And it's yes, fine. It's a chance for us to have a deep, meaningful conversation about what you're looking to achieve, how we work, and at the end of this, hopefully, you can make a decision. We can make a decision whether you want to proceed with a financial report. As soon as I've shown them what the agenda is, and it's literally within a minute explain the points to it, I hand over to them and say, I know we chatted on the phone about this. Please elaborate about what you're looking to achieve. Tell me why you're here and what you'd like to do for. And I get them both speaking, husband and wife.
It is very common to ask that question, that open question stuff.
Because I usually think they've got something on the mind. Someone's died. They've got a bonus. They've decided they want to retire in the next 5 years. There's something, an impetus for them to make a decision to go and see a financial planner. Maybe they're just unhappy with their existing planner and they want to come and see me. I want to give them the opportunity to elaborate on that point.
I guess one of the things to point out is that we send the client profile, which people refer to as a fact find beforehand. It's not like the traditional sense. In one of the questions on there is, what are your objectives working with a financial planner? So they would say it. So the team bring that into me if it's been brought in person or it's been sent back in, and I'll read through that before the meeting. So I kind of know that kind of section. So I guess that's why I'm just, and the reason I kind of batting it back, and I'm not trying to defend it, but what I'm trying to say is it's just the time resource. That's all. So just not controlling the meeting. I think when you ask open question like that, it's very easy. And I know there's very successful financial planners out there who do a similar sort of thing. Time can just sort of get run away, and 2 hours later, you're still in the meeting with them.
Well, yes, if it takes that long, it's such a big subject. I want them at the end of the meeting not only to decide if they want to commit to a financial report and have might have agreed the fee with them at that point, but I'll tell them the cost of a written report with ourselves, it's now changing. It's between £1,500 and £4,000. And that's what I say to them. Your cost will agree, depends on what you want to include in there. If they want to add in, you know, estate planning and IHT mitigation and carry forward calcs and all of this, the more stuff they want to put in, the higher the fee. If they've got a review of lots and lots of DB pensions and they want us to do state pension forecasts, just everything, it's on the higher scale of that. But I want them to, at the end of the meeting, ultimately to agree to a meeting, and to agree to a financial report. That's the purpose of my initial meeting. It's not 99%, 100% of the time that they will. Very, very seldom the client might come in and we establish that I can help them in other ways. They just need, I don't know, a life insurance policy, and maybe I want to help them with an investment of a lump sum. But more often than not, it's usually a review that I'm looking for. I want the client to want to essentially delegate their finances to us to sort them all out, make them feel easy about it. And then they can see that there's a trusted relationship. They've got a team. They've met all my staff. They've been made to feel through the office and the way they've been greeted and the way I've presented to them that this is a firm I want to work with. And if it takes an hour and a half to 2 hours, hey, listen, it's fine by me. So first impressions matter, and I don't want to rush it. I know that you were talking about 60 minutes. That's very time efficient.
Yeah, no, and like I said, there's no right or wrong. It's whatever works for you, isn't it?
Well, you could just do 3 meetings of an hour each, or I do 1 meeting of 2 hours. Which one's a better use of time? If you can cover off everything in 60 minutes, that's just very difficult to do.
It isn't about that. So the first meeting is about them. It's not about how we invest money or anything else. It's about them. And that's what I'm trying. The discovery meeting is to them discover, how do they want to live the rest of their life? If they knew they couldn't fail, what would they do? So we don't touch on investments. We don't touch on recommendations or products. We don't even really talk about the products they've got. It's really about them.
You're definitely, though, touching on life planning in the first meeting, which is fine. And that's the intentional. And you've done all your NLP and you've life planning. I get that. But I think myself, just to sort of combat what you've said, or sort of play devil's advocate, and I don't regret this. I'll always discuss two presentations and show them two presentations that are PowerPoint presentations in the first meeting. And I ask them for permission. I say the first one takes about 5 minutes, and it says it's about who are Tandem Financial and what do we do. And then later on in the meeting, almost always I'll present to them on how we invest their money, because I'm going to take them on. We're going to ultimately invest the monies, and I personally combine the two. They're
Yeah.
asking them great questions and show them and explain to them how we invest their money. But it depends on the level of
Right.
detail. It might be 10 minutes, it might be 3 minutes, and then just send them the brochure on how we invest the money.
Our subsequent meetings, so that's the discovery. The meeting following that is our investment presentation. And that's between 30 and 45, rarely an hour, but 30 and 45 minutes, depending on the number of questions that clients got. And that's a separate meeting. And all we talk about is our investment approach and our decumulation approach, how we, often, how we structure that. So you like your PowerPoint, so don't you?
Well, it works for me if you're going to present to the clients and you're going to ask them great questions. So let me give you an example, right?
I'm going to call
I
you
will tell
PowerPoint
you,
Paul.
PowerPoint Paul. I am particularly good at PowerPoint. Did you see my slides in my 147 slides at Humans Under Management South Africa? Did I get through them? Yes.
I'd forgotten that. I've forgotten about that.
You see, I like to bring comedy into my meetings, and I like to engage with the
Yeah.
client. I'll always use gesticulate, and I'll have good eye contact, and I'll be smiling and be very, very aware of my personality and how the client is responding to my questions. And then I'll follow up questions, make sure they're both speaking. All the rest of it is noise. You're never going to cover off everything, and I'm fully aware of the fact that 90% of what you say in the first meeting they'll have forgotten anyway. They won't take on board, but they'll remember my passion for financial planning. They'll remember how I made them feel. The classic
Yeah.
Maya Angelou quote, or misquoted her, it's actually another chat. I think that I want them to make a decision. Does it feel right for them to work with myself and my team? And do they
Yeah.
see a future in that? And if I can gel the relationship, I can work on over not just the next few meetings, but sometimes the next few years on how we invest and what Transact is, how it works. And most of that, in a client's mind, is immaterial. They just don't really care about
Yeah.
it. Are you going to look after
I
me?
agree.
They want to know what it costs. I get that, and
They
they
want to
want to
know
know
that
that you're on their
they
side.
want to know that you. Yeah, they want to know that you care. Really, they want to know you care.
Completely.
And we just go about it different ways. And I think the beauty of this is, like we said, we both run successful practices, so there's not one right way of doing this. There's just two different ways of doing it. Well, I'm sure there's more than that, but on this podcast, we're just airing two different ways of doing it. Let me ask you a question: how important do you feel the drinks are? Because I chuckle at I know, but some people say so much time of energy of making like a cappuccino and sprinkling coffee things, chocolate flakes over it and stuff. And I don't know, me, I'm kind of a, hey, look, we'll serve you nice coffee. We have local fresh roast coffee. We have a nice coffee machine. And I even served wine once before.
Well, this will answer your question. We have a menu on the desk. There's always water on the desk with some pens, so the client can obviously write. And they usually steal the Tandem branded pen, or I give it to them because I'm very nice. We'll ask them if they want tea or coffee, and then we'll bring it in nice, white china, saucers or whatever. And if we make and the coffee, we'll put a tea for Tandem in the top with cocoa.
I didn't know that.
We've got champagne, wine, non-alcoholic beer. We've got a list, a menu. Say, look, whatever you want. I want them to be treated like it's a 5-star hotel, 5-star restaurant. I mean, I'm not here to just serve them biscuits and make them tea. I don't do that anyway. My great team does that. I want to make sure they feel at home and they feel like if they're going to work with myself, especially if they're particularly well off, they want to have good service. And I think that's part of it.
White wine and red wine?
Yeah, of course, whatever you want.
What white wine do you serve up?
Well, listen, 1% of clients have ever asked for wine or champagne at first meeting. It is on there.
Yeah, what is it? What do you serve?
Oh, there's the white wine's a Chardonnay and the red wine's a Malbec. But there's a champagne. There's small bottles of them. They're all small bottles. I'm not going to open a full 700 ml bottle of wine just to say, hey, let's get sloshed in the first meeting.
Oh, they're small bottles of white wine and red wine.
Yeah. If they wanted that, I would happily serve it to them. It's not the end of it. It's usually a thing for an existing client might come in and they might have just sold a house or sold a business. We might be having a little congratulatory drink or whatever. getting off that subject onto another one, right? Because you're grilling me on my menu system for clients. I
No,
wanted to
very,
talk
very,
about some.
very quickly on that. It's not a question. It's almost like when I first started, when a client used to go over $1 million, I think it was net worth actually back in the time, we used to give them a bottle of champagne. And it's like, hang on, this is getting a bit like, it's like there's a lot of these coming out. So we kind of stopped it, but I might reintroduce it. It's like a good, we used to have a drinks menu for years and everyone always
Why
used
have you
to
not
just,
got one?
because they always used, they used to just order coffee or tea, and it was no one ever went off pee. Sometimes people have green tea. I think I've served one glass of red wine, sparkling water and stuff like that's different. We have all that on tap. The problem is, if I've got wine in my fridge in my office, I'm more likely to get it out when I'm working it.
Very good.
I'll probably, I'll just have a glass of red wine and stuff like that. I remember when I first started and I was writing all the reports myself, I used to go home, see the kids when they're young, pour myself a big glass of red wine, come back and finish the reports while I finished the wine.
Nice. I can get with that. Do you know my dad's 88 this year, and he has a small glass of wine every day. He said 125 mils or lower or less, usually with his food at 6 o'clock or 5:36 every single day without fail. And then at weekends, usually on a Saturday night, almost never on a weekday, might have a little whiskey. Anyway, listen, I'm going to get us back on track. I'm going to talk about. I'm going to give to our lovely listeners the 6 questions that I ask the client, and the way that I ask them, it's one of the slides as part of the presentation. So we've got this section called the 12 questions, and I'm just going to tell you 6 of them. So these are the 6, right? And obviously I could verbally ask them the question, but I have them come up on the screen in 6 different blocks. So I get the client to read it off the screen. Right? Number 1 is, how much is enough? Number 2 is, what does money mean to you? Number 3 is, how would you live if money were no object? Number 4 is, what are you most passionate about? Number 5 is, what are your biggest goals and dreams? And number 6 is, what is the money for?
Oh.
So I'm trying to, I don't necessarily want them to answer them all individually after I've just asked them. I get them to pick almost 1 or 2 of them and just start talking about it in the same way that you're trying to elaborate on getting the client to understand what's actually important to them, what their outcome is, what money means to them. It's just trying to get them to change their mindset and saying, look, the meeting's not for me to sell you a pension and for me to just invest your money. I want to look after you. I want to live your best life. I want you to tell me about your goals, hopes, passions, dreams, objectives, all of that. What is it? What are you really here for? What is the money for? And it's that classic Mitch Anthony question, the American author and advisor. He asks that at the end of all of his meetings, and then the presentations he does. And I think it's a great question.
Today, I read a poem, and it's really impactful when you get deep. I get deep with clients, but rarely do I have it done to me. And I read that poem today. It really was very impactful. So yeah,
what was the poem? Poem about what?
It's called Dash. Have you ever heard it? Dash. I'll send it to you. It's very good. Very good.
What was it about?
I'll send it to you because I want you to have the impact of it as opposed to me explain it to you. Because if I explain it to you, you'll register it intellectually. If you read it, you digest it a bit more emotionally.
Here's something that I can relate to. I think it was 3 or 4 days ago. It was 40 years since Ferris Bueller in Ferris Bueller's Day Off said the expression, life moves pretty fast. If you don't stop and look around once in a while, you could miss it. How intellectual is that? Yeah.
That's good.
Refer to a film quote that wow, that's a great question. And am I right or not? I don't know. As I've got older, I'm thinking life moves really quick.
Yeah.
And I was listening to Jimmy Carr just earlier on today on Modern Wisdom with Chris Williamson, very, very clever man, and just talking about this exact point, that it's not about the destination, it's about the journey. We see it all the time with our clients getting wrapped up in the, when I buy the big house, when I retire, that's when I'll be happy. My point there, made with a Ferris Bueller quote, Matthew Broderick, is absolutely relevant. The client's got to enjoy the journey. They've got to enjoy all the things that they can do between now and actually becoming financially independent. So maybe I'll bring 80s movies quotes into my presentations.
That would be good. That'd be good. Okay, so at the end of the discovery or the first meeting, whatever you decide it, what happens then? What goes out? So obviously,
Okay, good
right,
question. So I
right,
will have
okay.
built up the value, explained how we invest. Oh, were you going to give me your answer, or do you want me to?
No, I was just going to jump in and say we tend to go out to the car park there as they drive off if it's on in person. Most are on Teams, and give them a good wave. You just wave at them as they go by. It's kind of like, it came from Julie Lord. Julie Lord was a past president of the Institute of Financial Planning. I heard her talk
Yeah.
once years ago, and she said, "Yeah, when a client leaves, we all go outside and wave goodbye to them. They think we're crazy." And I thought, that's a really funny thing to do. That's what we do. We always make sure we wave goodbye to them.
We make sure that they don't drive through the gate or that they can reverse out, because all clients drive in and then they've got to wait for us to open our gate with a buzzer. And, we try not to watch them if they're bad car drivers and if they
It
can't
is,
reverse.
yeah.
I've had one
Yeah.
guy drive straight over the post where it's got the laser beam on it that closes it. He bent completely and he went. I was like, oh, should I send him an invoice for that? So listen, at the end of a meeting, we've built it up. We've had you 60 minutes, me up to 2 hours of a meeting with a client. We've found out if we want to work together, and there's two main things that I would finish at the end. One is I would be clarifying the costs and fees and showing them and demonstrating and saying, for a cost report is this. If you work with us, the initial fee is this, the ongoing fee is this. All three parts to the fee with the platform, the funds, and ourselves is this, and show them examples. I'll be very, very clear. I'll say, there's things I want to give you, and I make a joke of it. I said, I've got this little tandem handbag, it's a little
Oh yeah.
bag, like a parcel, suitcase, little bag with a zip. And in there's a tandem pen, little pad, and it's got a business card. And I used to put a copy of our brochure in there, but the cost of producing and printing the brochures, and they used to change, was so expensive. We don't do that anymore. We just email the brochure. But what I do have in there is the services and payment agreement, two letters of authority, and the data protection notice. And if the client wants to proceed then and there, I'll get them to sign my copy and their copy of these documents. Other times, I'll say, have a read through these. I'll follow up the meeting today with a summary of what we've discussed and what happens next, and just to confirm, and you can have a think about it. And I'm not as much foot in the door anymore, where I'm saying you must sign up at the end of this meeting, because it's a lot to take on. You've had an hour and a half, 2 hour meeting with a client, and then at the end of it, you're asking them to sign to agree to a $3,000 report. I often just follow it up and do it that way. That clarity of what happens next with the follow up email, with the discussion on fees, the costs, and getting them to sign or giving them the paperwork. That's what we do, and then as you say, wave them off.
Very, very interesting. We do the same thing with the bag. So we have the bag. We have the bag with a pen and pencil, a little pad, and I give my book, obviously, and often an umbrella. So I say we don't have any merchandise stuff like that, but I guess that's what we have. The reason we have the bag is I say to them, look, you're going to get a lot of paperwork from us. Just leave it in the bag, and then you can just bring this along with you at meetings and stuff. It's nice and easy. I don't expect you to go shopping with it, but
who do you get them branded? You get them branded. It says Lexington on there.
Yeah. Nikki does it. She's got umbrellas, got bags, pads, and pencil stuff. So it's just something that they can, and I sort of say to them, look, that's your finance bag. You just keep everything together in one place. It works really quite well. And then after the meeting, so the meeting is recorded. If it's in person, I record it on my laptop. If it's on Teams, obviously using Teams. But I don't use an AI transcript yet. I just found it hasn't been good enough. But I knock out the minutes. It doesn't take very long, and I type those out literally after the meeting.
Yeah.
So client's gone. I might go and get myself a coffee or a tea or something. Sit down. I write the minutes out.
Up.
Yeah.
You're talking about time efficiency, and you do an hour meeting, but then you spend ages typing the meeting notes up. That doesn't make any sense.
No. It's not ages. It takes me less than half an hour, and that's why I do it. It doesn't take me very long. So I write the notes out and everything else. And then I get those sent out to the client, and then Matt sends all the invites out for the planning and investment presentations.
The way that you're looking to try and make the client feel at the end of the meeting, because we talked with the original title was, what should the client expect? I think the client should expect to have been heard. They should expect to have been understood. They should be relieved and to have some clarity, a bit more confidence, a bit more control. And it's got to establish at the end of that meeting, do they want to work with us? Do we want to work with them? Can we really add value? Are they a good fit? We should have understood their goals and to help know if we can help them achieve them. For me, it's building a relationship, getting to know them. So you said he's getting to know them personally, financially, and sort of their life goals as well.
It's interesting what you said there is the client should expect. we should also expect the client to ensure that they, turn up on time, they return the paperwork to us, they treat us as a professional relationship. And if they don't understand something, that they tell us. And I'll often have this expectations conversation, thing Doug Carter taught me years ago. Normally, if I do an investment presentation, or sometimes I do it at a planning meeting, and I'll have this expectation conversation with clients, say, this is what you should expect of us. Can I tell you, and we go through it.
One of the slides on the how we work, I know you send them the document, the brochure, and how we work. In the meeting, I'll explain what Tan does, what a financial planner does, how we work, and also there's a one slider, and it says what you you should expect of us, and what we expect of you. Exactly
Yeah.
that, because you're setting those levels of expectations about when you'll return calls and emails and have me, and that they're not the only client, but the client probably expects you to have integrity and trust, to be communicative. But I say to them, I expect them to make time for their financial plan. I expect them to give us the information we need to produce the plan, because how can we do it otherwise? I expect them to be honest with me and to tell me if they want to do something, great, let's do it. If you don't want to do something, no problem. Just say, I don't want to do it. I don't want to work together. And lastly, I say to consider referring us.
Yeah.
If we're doing a good job, consider referring us to one of your friends.
Yeah. Yeah. Matt links back to, was it last week's session or last session we did and stuff like that? So, I think it's important. So, I think we've given that a really good, thrashing, I think, to use your phrase. I think you said that one week. From the initial phone call, going through to the actual discovery or first meeting, and then what we do after that. If we've covered everything for you, should we move on to our Q&A session?
Let's do that. Yeah, I've got quite a few.
You surprised me.
I've got 4, and I want to read all of them out because I obviously, because I came up with them, I think they're quite good. Come on, let me read all 4.
No,
I'm going to read all 4. They're really good. I'm going to start quick. Ready? No, ready? This one is by Theodore Roosevelt. He said, "People don't care how much you know until they know how much you care."
Yeah, I agree with that.
This is an unknown one. Good financial planning is 90% listening, 10% spreadsheets. I don't know if that's true. Maybe. Tony Robbins. Yeah, maybe. You got to at least talk a little bit. You said that one. That's a terrible quote. Cut that out. Number 3, Tony Robbins. We all know who he is. He says, "The quality of your life is determined by the quality of your questions."
It is, yeah.
And then lastly, adopted from Carl Richards. Wait. A great advisor doesn't give you all the answers. They help you ask the right questions. That's true.
Yeah. No, I think it's a bit of a scapegoat. I've got to be honest. I think, at the end of the day, I think a financial advisor needs to give you the answer. That's why you're coming there. I think it's very philosophical, isn't it? Financial advisors are great questions, but don't give you the right answers. You're a professional. You give the answers when they ask it. So step up and give the answers. I know, but
sometimes clients don't know what they want, though. That's the truth. You need to ask them the question, and as you said, it helped them elaborate on it and ask them why, and so sort of delve a bit deeper to get to that answer.
In that terms, I do agree with what you're saying. Yeah, in that terms. But,
okay.
Right. Is that a wrap for today?
I think so. I think that's. Do you want to explain what's happening next? Because that was. I'm pretty pleased with that today. But just when's our next one?
This concludes season 2 of the Finance Eats podcast, and we're now going to take a break for summer because Paul's gallivanting all around the globe into Tokyo and all over the place. So we're now going to come back, and our next session for you guys will be on the 9th of September for season 3. So if there are any topics that you think, do you know what, it'd be really good to get your view on this, that, and the other, or if you're a potential client or a retail investor thinking, do you know what, I'd really like to understand this about a financial planner, please message us, drop the messages in. We'll take them on board. We'll listen to them. We'll most likely come back to you and say, yep, that would be a good thing for the list. It's always nice to have some ideas from the people who are listening. And thank you so much for all the reviews. They've been coming through thick and fast, which we really appreciate. Both Paul and I do. But please, if you haven't done so yet, please review us. It helps us go up the rankings on the search engines. More people listen to us, and then we get more enthusiasm say, actually, this is worth doing.
Okay, good. All right. See you until next time then. Happy Brilliant. Travels. Happy summer. Enjoy the sun.
Everyone enjoy the summer, and we will see you on the 9th of September. Take care. Bye-bye.
Take care now. Bye.
Thanks for tuning in to the Finance Geeks. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave us a 5-star review. Drop your comments and questions on YouTube, and be sure to follow us on social media. Join us next time for more insights to boost your financial planning game.